China's silent exit, the $170 billion retreat, reshaping North America's economy. At first, it was subtle. A few missed meetings, some calls went unreturned. A handful of investment deals quietly disappeared. Then the reality became undeniable. China was pulling out, not from politics, not from trade talks, but from the American economy itself. Over $170 billion in Chinese investment has been withdrawn, divested, or erased from U.S. pipelines, projects, and future deals. From high-tech corridors in California to industrial hubs in Ohio, Chinese capital is vanishing. This isn't just a cautious pause, it's a calculated, strategic withdrawal. And as China retreats, the United States isn't just losing capital, it's losing leverage, factories, and, most critically, time. Back in 2016, Chinese investment into the United States peaked at over $45 billion. By 2018, it had collapsed to just $2 billion. Today, it's virtually zero. This isn't a slowdown. It's a full exit. Factories that were once greenlit have been abandoned. Venture capital funds are drying up. Real estate purchases are being unwound. Chinese-backed projects are disappearing from the American landscape. But the money isn't disappearing into thin air, it's relocating. Not back to Beijing, but across borders, especially to Mexico. A new center of gravity, Mexico's $200 billion boom over the past 24 months, more than $200 billion in new industrial investment has flowed into Mexico. Chinese companies are setting up manufacturing plants, logistics hubs, and even semiconductor assembly lines. Cities like Nuevo León, Jalisco, and Coahuila are rapidly industrializing, many with Chinese money. The goal is simple: serve American consumers while bypassing American tariffs. This is nearshoring, but it's also strategic repositioning, and Mexico has embraced the shift. President Claudia Sheinbaum has welcomed foreign investors, Chinese and American alike, by expanding infrastructure, upgrading water and energy supplies, and extending rail corridors to meet soaring demand. But not all deals are going smoothly. When Chinese electric vehicle giant BYD announced a $600 million plant in northern Mexico, it was hailed as a game changer. Then, without warning, the deal was shelved. The reason? Washington intervened. In response to the growing wave of nearshoring, former President Donald Trump issued an executive order imposing a 25% tariff on all imports from Mexico and Canada, unless the products complied with USMCA, United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, rules. Overnight, supply chains were thrown into chaos. Factory construction stalled, contracts were paused, shipments at the border were delayed. BYD's plant, which promised 10,000 jobs, evaporated. This is not just about economics anymore. It's a battlefield. As Mexico scrambles to manage the fallout, Canada is playing a different game altogether. Canada's strategic shift, controlling the future Ottawa, isn't chasing factories, it's securing the future. Canada is investing in critical minerals, lithium, cobalt, nickel, and rare earth elements. These resources are essential for electric vehicles, semiconductors, renewable energy, and even defense technologies like hypersonic weapons. More than 100 mining projects worth over $17 billion are now under development across Canada. But there's a catch. 3 years ago, Ottawa forced Chinese firms to divest from strategic mining assets. Since then, China has been largely locked out of Canada's most sensitive industries. Meanwhile, Washington is watching closely. With rising defense budgets and clean energy initiatives, the U.S. needs secure sources of critical minerals. If it can't rely on China, it must turn to allies like Canada. That's why the U.S. is rewriting procurement rules. Federal contractors must now source key materials from trusted partners. As a result, small mining towns in Quebec and British Columbia are gaining strategic importance, sometimes even more than Silicon Valley's tech campuses. But this shift isn't without cost. The broader impact. shifting supply chains and growing pain. Chinese investment vanishes from the United States and is blocked in Canada. It's finding new homes in Southeast Asia, Latin America, and Eastern Europe. Manufacturing hubs are emerging in Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, Peru, Chile, Serbia, and Hungary. This is not accidental. It's economic insurance against tariffs, sanctions, and the risk of another Cold War. As the U.S. tightens its trade grip, China is building around it. American companies are feeling the heat. Intel is building semiconductor fabs in Arizona. Tesla is developing a lithium refinery in Texas. Ford is investing billions to bring battery manufacturing back home. But these projects take time, and the pain is already here. General Motors estimates that tariffs could cost the company $5 billion this year. Ford projects a $2 billion hit. Parts shortages are rising. Electric vehicle. Timelines are slipping. And then there's Boeing. Earlier this year, Chinese airlines halted all new deliveries of Boeing aircraft. Planes that were fully built were either turned away or returned to Seattle. Some sat idle for months. Though deliveries have recently resumed under a fragile 90-day trade truce, the damage is done. The backlog is massive. Investor confidence is shaken. Boeing has warned that any return of tariffs could threaten thousands of jobs. The impact isn't limited to big corporations. Across the U.S., from Michigan to Mississippi, factories are losing orders. Smaller suppliers are downsizing. Inflation is creeping back. American households are projected to pay over $1,000 more this year due to tariff-driven price hikes on cars, electronics, and building materials. The bigger picture, a dangerous decoupling. This isn't just about money. It's about trust. Chinese companies are delisting from U.S. stock exchanges. Tech giants are leaving the NASDAQ and moving to Shanghai. U.S. venture capital is drying up. University applications from Chinese students are plummeting. Congress is pushing for stronger export controls, tighter investment screening, and even a digital iron curtain. Behind closed doors, intelligence officials are warning of something deeper: decoupling. Not just in goods and services, but in data, communications, and science. Once capital leaves, trust follows. And once trust is gone, conflict becomes more likely. Mexico understands this. That's why President Sheinbaum is treading carefully. Her government is screening Chinese firms more closely, flagging sensitive sectors, and slowing down negotiations. She has reassured Washington of Mexico's alignment and is working to finalize tighter trade protocols under USMCA. A new dependency? Still, the question remains, is nearshoring enough? Or is the U.S. simply swapping one dependency for another? Even if manufacturing moves from China to Mexico, many designs, patents, and components still originate in China. That means the geopolitical risk isn't eliminated, it's just delayed.